change your life in a lot of areas. How many of you feel dissatisfied with your financial position in your life? In other words, you can't create what you want to create because you don't have enough money. Yeah? So what do you feel that's about? Well, that's because I didn't have an inheritance from my mother and father, and because nobody will give me any money for some reason. And what is it about? What is it about really? It's about an unloving cause within yourself related to this aspect of finance or money inside of ourselves. And all we've got to do is find it. And the law of attraction is probably bringing it to us every day. Because remember, we have a cause that creates an event. Like clockwork, this happens. This is like clockwork. This is like tick, 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 another event, tick, tick, another event, tick, tick. It's like, honestly, within the course of an hour, we have event after event after event. And within the course of a day, hundreds of events are showing us. And if we want to know them, we'll eventually see the painful effect. Now, how many of you do feel the painful effect of not being able to create what you want to create? Well, you're liars. No, I'm serious. Well, if you felt the painful effect, you would have found the cause. So you're not letting yourself feel the painful effect, you're trying to work your way around it all the time. Because if you really felt the painful effect, you would be in the cause, and next day, 2 days later, 5 days later, everything will change. That's what would really happen if we were really feeling the painful effect. But you know what we do with the painful effect? We go, oh, I don't want to feel that, don't want to feel that, don't want to feel that, it feels terrible, I don't really want to feel that. And remember, the painful effect isn't often what we think. You see with the aspect of money, for example, we're often going, yeah, I don't have any money, have a big cry because I can't create what I want. Now, is that the causal emotion? Like, did the child at 2 years of age understand money? 5 years of age, did they understand money? Probably not. Probably 7, they might start to understand money, maybe. 8, 9, maybe 10, you're starting to really get money. 12, 13, now you probably understand money. Where do most of our causal emotion come from? By the time before we're age of 7, before we even understood money. So how can we cry about the lack of money and expect our money situation to change? It doesn't make any logical sense. If our causal emotion is before the age of 7 for most of us, then whatever happened had to be related to what happened before we were 7 years of age with regard to money. Isn't that logical? And if we're not getting to that emotion, we're not dealing with the cause. And if we don't deal with the cause, we're not going to change the event, which is we don't have any money. Does that make sense? Or does it make dollars? That was bad, wasn't it? Can you see the relationship, though? You see, a lot of times what we're doing is we are actually crying about the effect. You see what we're doing is events happen, we put $1,000 in our bank, we have a car accident, $1,500, out goes the $1,000, and another $500, we're now in debt, that's the event. The painful cause. Now we're feeling stressed, we're feeling anxious, part of this is a part of the cause. The stress and anxiety that we feel about money or the lack of it. That's part of the cause. But we don't feel that. You know what we do? We go out and get another job. And we earn some money and now we feel safe. Now we've just dealt with the effect. Even if we have a cry about the painful of not having the money, we're still feeling the effect. Because we're not feeling the cause. And we need to discover the cause. Your guides are just hanging out with you to help you discover the cause. Any mediums in the room? Trust me, any person who comes along to you, their guides are going, tell them the cause, tell them the cause, tell them the cause. Not the effect, not to do with the effects. The guides are focused on this. If they're on the Divine Love path, your guides, they are focused on this. So with money, we are obviously feeling the effect of a lack of money, but we're not allowing ourselves, we're trying to feel the effect, but we're not fully feeling it, because if we fully felt it and we really got into it, we would actually connect with the cause. And the cause won't be about money, because it's highly unlikely it's about money, because most money issues get created before, or most emotional issues get created before we're 7 years old, and we didn't understand money, most of us, by then. So it can't be about money. It's got to be about emotions from our parents. So how did our parents feel about money? Liam?
So what happens if there's two children and with the money situation, one child carries on about how they don't have any, and yet the other one, who doesn't seem to have dealt with their emotions, I suppose, fights their way to actually creating their own money. Would a situation like... So what I'm trying to say is...
It's just a pendulum of the same problem. Here's balance.
Yeah.
One child responds this direction because of their personality. Personality depends on how it determines how we respond to a causal event. And one child says, I've got no money, I'm never going to have any money. The other child will go out and create lots of money. But they still have the injury.
So would then something, say, the one child who doesn't have money finally works out their cause and becomes not necessarily abundant, but doesn't have that problem.
I suggest to you that if they're not abundant, they have not found the cause.
What I was going to say was, but so the effect would be, say, the financial crisis again, that one with all the money loses it, but the one who is abundant doesn't, the crisis doesn't affect them at all.
Well, a person who's abundant won't feel they have any lack at any point in time, and therefore will be doing exactly what they desire at all points in time. And I suggest to you that if they feel they don't have abundance, or they still feel they're not necessarily abundant, they still haven't dealt with the underlying emotion. I've found from experience the emotions with money are quite severe, and mostly to do with a lot of emotional trauma with the relationship between our parents. You see, every single time our parents had an argument, we felt no love whatsoever. Every single time. Now, what are the causes of a lot of arguments in a relationship? Money's one. Any others? Sex? What else? Mother-in-laws. So sex or unfaithfulness in sex, all those kind of things cause a lot of arguments. Money causes a lot of arguments. And there's a third major cause of a lot of arguments in a relationship. Injustice. Injustice is a third major cause. So in other words, one or both parents feel that the other parent is doing something unjust to them or unjust to the family. That's a major cause of arguments. Now, if you look at those three major causes of arguments, every time your parents argued about one of those things, all the children in the family felt unloved. All of them. Because every time there's anger in a person, they are not loving. Simple as that. So the children could be upstairs, asleep, right? And downstairs, the parents are having an argument the children can't even hear, and yet the children are still going to feel unloved from the event. Because they're in the sleep state, feeling the feelings from their parents anyway. So they're still going to feel the feeling. Does that make sense to everyone? So what's happening really is that every single time my parents argued, I am going to have an emotional attachment about the reason for their argument. So if they argued about money, or they felt afraid about money, or they felt they didn't have enough money, and every single time they felt afraid or angry, I will not feel loved. Every single time. So if mum's terrified about how little money she has, I am not going to feel loved in that moment. In that moment. So mum opens it, gets the mail, opens the bill, looks at, oh, another bill. In that moment, she has fear. How am I going to pay for this? All those feelings start coming up for her. In that moment, every one of her children do not feel loved in that moment. And so what do the children learn? Love is going to be removed whenever there is a money issue. That's what they learn. So they learn a link. There's a link created in them emotionally between the money itself, the having of it, or the have-notting of it, and their being unloved or unwanted or uncared for. There's an automatic relationship. Now, the personality of the child will determine how they respond to that. Some of the children then go out and produce as much money as they possibly can for their mummy. They're producing it for their own life, but they don't realise they're actually producing it for their mummy, so their mummy doesn't have to be afraid. Does that make sense? And the alternative is they go into this place where I don't deserve anything, I don't want any money. Every time anybody gives me money, there's always strings attached. There's all sorts of emotions associated with our parents with money. And that's what causes the lack of funds in our life, the lack of prosperity in our life. It's nothing to do with the actual money. And you can find people who have lots of money and they still have the same emotional issue. Yeah. So what does that tell you? It tells you that there is an underlying causal emotional fear about money still within them. And they have either gone to produce it in order to prove that, to give them the approval from the parents or whatever, or they've gone to say they've got none and they keep on spending it without producing it. And that causes all sorts of other attention issues with our parents. Either way, we still need to find the cause. And so with money issues, the cause is very rarely related to money as a result. The cause is usually related to a lack of love coming from the parent. That means one of the best things you can do, to be honest, is to list all the things mum and dad get angry about and all the things mum and dad are afraid of, because they are the times you never felt loved. And you'll start connecting emotionally to many of them if you allow yourself to do that. Daddy's throwing you up, catching you, throwing you up, catching you, and you're laughing and carrying on and everything's funny. And then mum comes in the room and says, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" It could be that event that causes you to be afraid of that feeling. And so now every time you're driving along the road and you go over a little bump, ooh, that's a feeling, the same feeling. Yeah? And you're not ever going to get rid of that feeling until you link the cause, which is my mother's withdrawal of love of a fear projected at daddy throwing me up in the air and catching me. Does that make sense? Does it make sense? Yeah? Logical? Yeah? Igor?
How can we make a link if we don't remember?
Well, it's very hard to make the link, but if this is why we're having this discussion, is to understand, and this is why I brought this situation up, is to understand that most causes are to do with love, not to do with other things. So they're to do with love or a lack of it. So anything that is loving causes a loving and joyful effect. Anything that is unloving causes a unloving effect. So if I've got a fear of money, or I don't have enough money in my life, for example, it's got to be related to love somehow. And the key is for you to just, allow yourself to have the awareness at your soul level that it has to be related to love somehow, instead of trying to guess that it's related to something else other than love. Does everyone follow that? A lot of times what we're trying to do is we're trying to guess that it must be this and that happened and this event happened or whatever, but we're not relating a lot of our stuff to love, and it's the love that needs to grow in us, and it's the love that needs to change, and love and fear cannot coexist at the same time. And so therefore, many of the unloving effects are caused by fear-based lack of love causes. And there is a linkage between love and the lack of love and our fear. When you get down to it, you'll find that all of your fear is related to love. All of it. A feeling that you're not loved, a feeling that you cannot be loved, a feeling that you're unlovable, a feeling that you're unworthy to be loved, a feeling, all of your fear is related to that at some point. And the reason why is because every single time your parents were in fear or in anger, which is the denial of their fear, you did not feel loved. And yes, we do need to process the emotions we need to process, but in the end, you will come to see the relationship. And it took me a while, to be honest, Igor, to actually stop trying to work out events and situations and so forth, and to start seeing that God was just correcting love within me. And this is what the law of cause and effect helped me to understand, was that God is actually correcting the love or the type of love or the lack of love within me. And that was the cause of all of these unloving effects, these painful things that were happening in my life. And as long as I was willing to feel those unloving causes, like to feel the feelings associated with them, I could release them and come to understand love in the process.